Hey guys, good Friday morning. Michael Clark here with BAMWX. Been tweeting a lot of thoughts here over the last couple of days, and I've had a video a couple of days ago over on the YouTube channel. Go check it out. But I wanted to provide my latest thoughts here this morning, just as we're continuing to look at this stuff and what I believe is a pattern that at least has some potential and some excitement this year. The last couple of winters, I'm doing videos in mid-December and haven't had a lot of hope, and looking at warmth and unfavorable weather patterns the last several winters. This year's different. I personally believe we've got some potential here for winter to come back and offer up some fun. So share it with a friend. If you don't subscribe to the YouTube channel, please feel free to do it. We'd love to have you follow along. So this is the next 2 weeks. All right, this is the week 1 forecast on the left. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on this. It's dry in the central U.S. It's active and wet across the south and up to the northeast, and it's colder. We got a colder than normal forecast the next 7 days. December obviously opening very cold, and then this is the moderation. This is going to take us out through the 20th of December. I talked about on Wednesday. It's just going to get warmer. We're going to lose the North Pacific block. The pattern does start to become a little bit more active, especially in the central U.S. We'll see some storm systems there. It's not looking like that's going to be anything in terms of big winter storms, at least right now. And again, we're going to favor this moderation period probably until after Christmas. Right now, at least, is the preliminary thoughts with that. Okay, so let's go up here, and I want to take you to kind of the next thought process here. This is the CFS V2. This is the forecast of the Madden-Julian oscillation. It's the tropical forcing as it travels through the Pacific Ocean. So if you kind of picture like it's kind of moving across right here, it's going this way, the upward motion, the tropical convection. And this is the CFS forecast taking us through phase 5 into phase 6, eventually into phase 7, with some indications that we could get into potentially a phase 8 of the MJO sometime in the first week of January if this were to continue. All right. Nonetheless, a couple things happen here. As you start to round off into an aggressive phase 6 or a stronger phase 6 of the MJO, this is the precursor of the return of the North Pacific block. Okay. As you get into phase 7, this is a precursor of the potential for that block. As you see here, let me show you. Here's the lag periods. These are the Pentad periods. Watch late December. Look at all the higher heights that are coming into the higher latitudes that potentially suggest that as you get into 6 into 7, this is a precursor for some potentially a stratospheric warming event of some sort. So a couple things are happening here, and the current placement, the stretched out nature of the vortex, there's favorability here for this pattern to work in our favor. Now, what I wanted to talk about here is the 6 into 7 of the MJO. You can kind of see what starts to happen here. It's late December into January. We would bring back blocking and bring the trough back over into the U.S. And favor a wintry return late December into early January. That's the CFS's version of it. You look at the forecast for the overall tropical forcing mechanisms, if you will. This is the GFS, the GEFS weekly, goes out to 35 days. You can see currently right now, certainly in the phases 4 and 5, and you can see how these colors, this upward motion kind of projects eastward across the equator right here. You see this is kind of the movement west to east of that. Note here this very sharp contrast in westerly zonal winds into easterly zonal winds here across the western Pacific. Note what starts to happen late December into January is a westerly wind burst is forecast to develop. And I go through and look at patterns since 2000 that feature something very similar to this. What you're seeing here is December of 13 and January of 14. And what you're watching here is the same variable skirting across the Pacific, the same setup here with our zonal winds and a big westerly wind burst here into January of 14. What happened in January of 14 was the vortex never broke down. Okay, we never had a breakdown of the vortex, but what we had is we had a poleward extension of a very strong North Pacific blocking event. And it stayed there for a while. A lot of it had to do with just the background state of the atmosphere promoting the North Pacific block. I think with the MJO right now, we're obviously seeing the EPO go away. We're going to get that vortex and the Aleutians and the Bering Sea. But I think a kickstart back to the EPO is this MJO's going through these phases and the low frequency background state supporting that this North Pacific block should be here. Once we kickstart that and bring it back, I think we're going to have a hard time taking it away. And with that strong westerly wind burst, the potential here to really send that block poleward is on the table. And that really could stretch that vortex or displace it to potentially be in favor for some interesting weather ahead. I just want to show you a couple of the weekly models because they're all seeing this. And what they're all seeing is this plus TNH pattern. And what this is this. It's the tropical northern hemispheric pattern. It's a strong indication of the North Pacific block, and at times this block, going into the higher latitudes, with the big trough developing here, and a gradient to the south and east. It's cold and stormy in here. All right, the CFS shows this. Now it does have the moderation, right? It does have the moderation, and you can see that very clearly, right? You can see how we bring back that vortex there in the Hudson Bay. The PNA sticks around, but we really lose the connection to the polar air source here. But then as we get later into December, into January, watch what starts to happen. We start to see this evolution towards that plus TNH and the big return of that North Pacific ridge. Okay, this would be into the first half of January if you're asking the CFS weather model. And then if you're looking at the European weeklies, it's doing the same thing. Okay, it's doing this late December into early January. We're bringing that pattern back. And then the EPS really starts to bring back the North Pacific block again further into January. It's a little further west with the trough, but again, generally, that is that look there as well. This is the CMC, the Canadian weeklies. All I'm doing is showing you a general progression here late December into January of all the models supporting this look and having this Hudson Bay vortex in place, North Pacific block, and just a pattern that can be wintry. This is even the JMA, the weekly. We're just seeing a trough over the Great Lakes in the Midwest with the North Pacific ridging in place. Okay, this is January 2014 on the left, and this is the CFS into mid-January on the right, the forecast. Again, you can see the similarities. I think January has the potential to offer up some extreme shots of cold air and a lot of snow, especially in the Midwest and potentially the Deep South. The other thing I want to bring to our attention is, again, the potential of some stratospheric warming episodes where some displacements, I'm not necessarily saying a breakdown or a split, but some displacements of the vortex are on the table as well. And that's favored in years where we have higher solar activity in westerly QBO phases for another day. But nonetheless, there's indications of that on the weather models, that there can be some strat warming going on, especially as the North Pacific block returns. Again, a la 13, 14, very similar. For those of you that can't remember, the core of the cold was favored in the Midwest, the Great Lakes in 13, 14 winter. The polar vortex came down in early January. That's really when that term, the buzz term vortex, really got its name, is in early January 14. And the snow, if you will, was centered really across the Midwest and the Deep South. And there was some snow in the Northeast too. Yeah, there was some snow. I mean, it was just a snowy winter, all in all. So with the core of the cold being focused in the Midwest. So I just wanted to give you an idea. Again, continued thought processes. It's going to be mild until up to Christmas and shortly thereafter. And I think the pattern breaks in a big way. I think it's a great pattern into January for winter, for snow, for cold. I'm encouraged by what I see personally, and I don't think it's over by a long shot. listen, if I'm wrong, my predictions are off. That's the name of the game. I'll be sure to come back and say, hey, everything I was calling for didn't happen, and I was wrong. But for now, I like what I see, and we'll keep you posted. Have a great weekend.